Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today we're talking about how Stomaria exerts power. But before I discuss this particular question in some detail, I did want to briefly touch on what the conventional nations of the world do to exert their own power. How do they actually accomplish this? What does it actually look like? And so before we get started with the question of how Stomaria exerts power, I did want to discuss what I mean by power. And I think this can be broken up into two camps. You have hard power and soft power. So when we talk about hard power, what we are typically talking about is nations utilizing their military might to get their own way, to throw their weight around in a very aggressive, forceful and coercive manner in order to accomplish whatever goals that they have. A good example of this would be China in the Pacific, or the United States in the Middle East, or Russia in Europe. These aren't the only actors, obviously, that utilize hard power by utilizing their military might. There are many, many examples across the world and have been for many, many years. However, when it comes to the utilization of hard power from our own perspective, this completely flies in the face of what we believe in. We are advocates of armed neutrality, something that I have discussed in the past. But beyond this, even if it wasn't in contrast to our values and our aspirations and actual objectives, we are nevertheless all the Stomarians, law-abiding citizens of our respective conventional nations. And so throwing our weight around through force, through coercion, through violent means is obviously not only standing in contrast to our values, but it's also illegal. So this is obviously not something that we're interested in. We are, however, quite successful at exerting soft power, at least on some level. Now, soft power stands in contrast to hard power. Whereas hard power is about force and coercion, soft power is about trying to make your nation as appealing as possible to others, to tempt them into becoming more involved in what you are doing. So a good example of this would be using diplomatic relations between two nations, encouraging and promoting your values and the culture and identity of your nation, which might be more appealing to outsiders. It might be a case of trying to have some sort of economic benefit that ties other nations to your own. It might be some sort of investment into the other nations of the world in order to prop them up in some form or another, but also advance your own goals in making inroads in building closer ties with that nation. So there are various ways in which you can actually exert soft power. And China in recent years, for my own views on the Chinese government or others' views on the Chinese government, China has nevertheless been very successful in exerting soft power in recent years. They've done it through investments in Africa. They've done it through diplomatic relations with other nations and communities. So a good example of this would be the Iranian-Saudi deal. China actually brokered a deal between these two quite hostile nations and re-established diplomatic relations with one another because of China's influence, or certainly that is how it is portrayed, which is a bit of a snub to the United States, for instance, because obviously the Middle East is typically considered to be under the influence or jurisdiction of the United States in some form or another. They definitely have a lot of involvement in that region, and for China to come and have this diplomatic win is, as I say, a snub to the United States. But that is a way of exerting soft power. It's not about using force or coercion, it's just about making your nation more appealing. And that is something that China has been quite successful in doing. Now, when it comes to Stomaria, there are many ways in which Stomaria has itself, in its own ways, exerted that kind of soft power. So how do we do this? How does Stomaria exert soft power? How successful are we in exerting that kind of power? And what is the evidence for that success? Well, to start with, I think it's worth talking about Stomaria's structure, because for those that don't know, Stomaria is a federal monarchy. Our very structure is about promoting unity through voluntary association while encouraging the retention of the cultural characteristics that make each member state unique. This kind of structure is incredibly popular, is incredibly appealing, with a little under 100 applications to become a member state since we were founded. Our seemingly standalone but nevertheless unwavering opposition to the coercive, oppressive, and genocidal ideologies that are advocated amongst the nation-building and micronational communities has likewise been extremely well received, with our public condemnations of communism being amongst the most popular content on our YouTube channel. Now, to be clear, even if this wasn't the case, even if it wasn't well received, even if it wasn't popular content, we would nevertheless continue to air these views, because what we stand for is individual liberty, is personal liberty, is freedom, and any ideology, communism, fascism, neo-Nazism, whatever, anything that stands in contrast to these values, to these aspirations, will be called out by us. But it is gratifying to know that this position that we hold is nevertheless incredibly popular and incredibly appealing to those who believe as we do. Beyond this, something that seems quite a rarity these days is that when we say we are going to do something, we actually do it. And this might seem quite mundane on the surface, but it is nevertheless something that, as I say, is quite a rarity and does make us more appealing. So when we say that we are going to acquire land and develop that land, we are going to grow our own food, we're going to provide our own water, we're going to generate our own energy, we're going to utilize our own money, we are going to establish a structure for the empire in which other nations and other communities can come together to establish that real world community, to have those communal gatherings. Everything that we have talked about over the years has come to fruition in some form or another, and people can see that, and that is what makes Stomaria so appealing to a great many people. As I say, it is a rarity these days that when people say they're going to do something, that they actually follow through and do it. Investment is another thing that sets Stomaria apart from other nations and other communities. We are not shy about utilizing the financial resources we have at our disposal to advance Stomaria's goals. And if these goals can be aligned with the other member states and external partners of the empire, so much the better. Mutual benefit is even better than exclusive benefit. And that is the sort of mantra, that is the mentality we have. If we can support more than one nation and more than one community, but also benefit ourselves, that is a path that we will take, and we will not hesitate to invest in anything that will accomplish this. Now, Southwood, a Stomarian province, the first ever Stomarian province, is a prime example of this. This land was purchased from Waywood in 2022, and comparatively large sums of money have been spent on turning Southwood into a clean, organised, and ecologically conscious territory within the empire. And as it's bordered to Waywood South, which is a Waywoodian province, Southwood is heavily utilised by the Waywoodian community. Beyond this, in the past, we purchased chickens from Waywood, provided Waywood with interest-free loans. We sent King Raoul of Waywood on a beekeeping course, and more besides. We're not afraid to spend money to make things happen, because we know that we're in this for the long haul. These are not investments, these are not purchases, these are not expenditures which are an issue from our own perspective, because we know that we're going to keep pushing on with this. And it is not difficult to see why this would be appealing, not just to the member states of the empire, but also those that may want to get involved in the empire in some form, either as a member state or as an external trade partner. When it comes to our monetary system, this is perhaps one of the best known aspects of Stomaria, in that we are the only nation in the world that actually utilizes commodity money, sound money, for trade, commerce, and enterprise. These are called statas, which are made from pure silver, and not only do the member states of the empire feature on these, but the governing body of each member state is able to acquire limited amounts of them each year based exclusively on the spot price of silver, making them one of the cheapest ways in the world to acquire physical silver. Before long, we'll also be introducing gold statas in order to facilitate larger purchases of goods and services. The appeal of this should be obvious, but the evidence also speaks for itself, as the Waywoodian community is by far the largest holders of statas outside of the imperial treasury, with the Waywoodian treasury alone being the second largest holders of statas due to its ability to purchase them at a cheaper rate. In terms of economic development, Southwood is by far the empire's most productive provinces when it comes to agriculture and energy. And beyond this, Southward is also the only territory with structures of any kind on it, and Wayward South, an adjoining province which is governed by Wayward, is only accessible through Southward. So Southward is an incredibly important part of the empire. Beyond this, we're making inroads in the apicultural and forestry industries, with livestock also being considered for next year, while we continue to utilise the stata to purchase goods and services from others. The ability to expand these industries and at the same time supplying commodity money to our partners in order to facilitate a trade network and lessen our dependence on the conventional nations of the world and attain greater levels of self-reliance in these ways is obviously something that will appeal to a great many people. When it comes to how we present ourselves, we do so in a way that differentiates Stomaria from many others out there. So we don't put on fake accents, we don't come up with goofy laws, we don't come up with little bits of paper or bottle caps that we expect other nations and other communities to utilise as a medium of exchange. We don't declare war or sanctions or embargoes against other people. We don't go out there and claim continents, planets or fictional realms as territory of the empire. We don't count ants, chickens, teddy bears as citizens of Stomaria. We don't come up with medals and awards each and every year just so we have something to hand out. We don't come up with a new name, a new flag, a new driving ideology every couple of weeks because we're bored. All of this is something that can be seen taking place across many other circles a lot of the time, and this is something that we have no interest in affiliating with. In short, we have no interest in making a mockery of the nation-building process, and we have no interest in associating with those that make a mockery of the nation-building process. Now, if there are others that wish to do that, they are welcome to do so, just as we are welcome not to associate or affiliate with them in any way. And that is one of the reasons that we abandoned the term Micronation when referring to ourselves back in 2022, because the association with the term had been completely tainted by those who are engaging in activities much as I've just described. We are looking to actually build a new community, a new society, a new nation in the modern world through legal and legitimate means. This requires a certain level of investment, a certain level of seriousness, a certain level of dedication, which most self-defined micronations have absolutely zero interest in. And that's absolutely fine. They can do their thing, we will do ours, but we are not the same thing. And making that distinction has been one of Stomaria's biggest selling points, and Stomaria's followings have increased to all-time highs. Our citizenship numbers have increased to all-time highs. The number of status in circulation has increased to all-time highs. The amount of land within the empire has increased to all-time highs. Everything is on the up. And micronationalism doesn't have a part to play in what we are doing. And this again is why we are an inspiration for hundreds of people that are actively working on building a better life for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. We are the blueprint for those that are looking to build a nation in the modern world, despite not having the wealth or influence to instantly turn their vision into reality. We're not sat here just telling people how it could be done. We are going out there and actively doing it. We are showing people how it can be done. And that is what makes Stomaria appealing to so many people. And that is how we do exert some level of soft power. If you want to learn more about Stomaria or play an active role in our development and expansion, visit our website at www.stomaria.com and find out what it means to be a Stomarian.